All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about some Nobel-winning ideas that honestly redesigned how huge parts of our world get bought and sold. I mean, we're talking about everything from the airwaves carrying your phone signal to public resources that are worth billions. So, yeah, let's just dive right in.
Okay, so let's start with a puzzle. Imagine you're a government back in the early 90s. How do you sell something that's, well, incredibly valuable, but also super complex and totally invisible? Yeah, I'm talking about the radio frequencies that power, our entire Moby world.
The answer to that puzzle? Well, it turned out to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And get this, it wasn't just about slapping a price tag on something. No, it was about inventing a whole new market, literally from scratch.
See, before the 90s, governments really had a massive problem. They were trying to give out this radio spectrum using some pretty inefficient methods. You had these so-called beauty contests where they'd basically just pick a winner they liked, or even simple lotteries. And you can probably guess, these methods just didn't work very well. It was bad for taxpayers, bad for consumers, just bad all around.
And here's the real heart of the problem, right? The value of one license often depended on owning other licenses. Think about it. A cell phone company might want a license for New York City, but that license is way, way more valuable if they can also get the one for New Jersey. So if you just auction them off one by one, well, you could end up with a total disaster. Companies could win one piece of a puzzle they could never complete.
So, at the core of this whole puzzle is this really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive trap. It affects pretty much any auction where nobody's exactly sure what the thing is worth. And it's something that any smart bidder has to constantly worry about.
It's called the winner's curse. Just think about it for a second. In an auction where value is uncertain, a bunch of people make their best guess. So, who wins? Well, by definition, it's the person who made the highest guess. The very act of winning is a signal that you might have been the most optimistic person in the room, and that you probably overpaid. And this isn't just, a case of buyer's remorse. It's a real statistical phenomenon. So, to avoid getting cursed, what do smart bidders do? They have to shade their bids. They deliberately bid less than what they think the thing is actually worth. And of course, that means less money for whoever is selling it. Yeah, and this isn't just some abstract theory either. Researchers looked at auctions for offshore oil leases and found this exact thing happening in the real world. The quote here says it all. The company that won the lease was often the one that was most wrong about how much oil was actually down there. Ouch. Okay, so how on earth do you solve a problem like the winner's curse, especially when you're dealing with these super complex, interconnected things? Well, it took a really fundamental shift in how economists thought about things. They had to move from just analyzing markets to actually building them. This new way of thinking was called mechanism design, and you can really think of it like market engineering. Instead of just looking at an auction and saying, here's what happened, they started asking, okay, what's our goal here? Do we want the most money? Do we want fairness? And then you design the rules of the game from the ground up to make sure you get the outcome you want. It's a total game changer. And this is exactly where our main players enter the story. Economists Paul Milgrom and his mentor, Robert Wilson. This is where they had their Nobel-winning breakthrough. So Milgrom had this brilliant core insight. He realized an auction isn't just about price. It's actually an information system. If you design the rules the right way, you can help the bidders learn from each other during the auction. Like in an open auction where the price keeps going up, everybody can see who's still bidding. All that shared information reduces uncertainty for everyone. And that is how you start to cure the winner's curse. All right, so let's get practical. When the US government finally decided to auction off all that radio spectrum, Milgrom and Wilson didn't just write up a report with some advice. Nope, they actually invented a completely new auction format, designed specifically to solve this one massive, high-stakes problem. And the inspiration for this? It's pretty cool, actually. Milgrom got the idea from going to charity fundraisers. You know those silent auctions where you walk around and write down your bid on a piece of paper? He liked how you could see all the items and prices at once, but he also saw a big flaw: sniping. That's when people wait until the very last second to put in their bid so no one else has time to react. His goal was simple: keep the good parts and fix the bad parts. And what they came up with was the simultaneous multiple round auction, or SMRA for short. And here's the genius of it. First, you offer all the licenses at the same time. Second, the bidding happens in separate rounds. It's not just a free-for-all. And third, and this is the crucial part, after every single round, All the current high bids are made public. This lets companies see how prices are moving, change their strategy on the fly, and figure out the absolute best combination of licenses for them. It just dramatically reduces the fear of that winner's curse. Okay, so that's the theory, and it sounds pretty elegant, right? But the real question is, how did this brand new custom-built auction format actually do in the real world? Well, the very first auction the FCC held back in July of 1994 was a staggering success. I mean, it raised $617 million for licenses that, up until then, the government had basically been giving away for free in lotteries. The value of designing a market the right way was proven just instantly. And that wasn't a one-time thing. It was no fluke. Over the next 20 years, this one single invention generated over $120 billion for U.S. taxpayers. And that's just from selling radio spectrum. It didn't take long for this to go global. The SMRA quickly became the world standard. Countries all over the place, we're talking Canada, Germany, India, the UK, they all adopted this format. All told, it's generated way more than $200 billion globally. It just fundamentally changed how these super valuable public resources get handed out. So here's the real takeaway. This story isn't just about economics. It's about how this really rigorous, kind of abstract thinking can be used to build the hidden architecture of the world we live in. You know, the principles they came up with for these auctions, they're now at work in all sorts of places, from Google's ad auctions to how our electricity grids are run. And that really leaves us with a pretty powerful thought, doesn't it? If designing a better auction can solve a multi-billion-dollar problem this effectively, what other huge, complex challenges could we solve? Things like carbon credits or even organ donations. Maybe the answer isn't just a new policy, but a fundamentally better designed market.